Hello everyone, this is CounterYolo, bringing you another video talking about Star Trek Online. And today is going to be the first day of the coupon discount tokens inside the game. And so I'm going to do a sort of brief video talking about how those coupon tokens actually work inside the game, alongside a really big warning about the problems with them, and then go over the top 10 starships to probably use your token on if you haven't gotten them already from the C-Store. Feel free to see the time links in the description, and let's go ahead and get started. So when it comes to coupon progress tokens, I guess that's the real name for them, they're starting with the event that's starting off today, Operation Repose or something like that. As our executive producer talked about a couple of weeks ago, this is coming out because what he was realizing was there were a lot of people that saw the featured events and they were like, well, the event looks interesting, but I'm not motivated to get the stuff from the event, so I'm just not going to play the event at all. There's also people who are like, they want it so bad that they'll spam at the very beginning of the event, and then there's like no one to play the event at the tail end of it. So queue times are significantly longer at the end than at the beginning. So they're trying to do this so that there are more people playing the event and more people playing consistently throughout the event. So that, hey, if you don't want the stuff from the event, well, you can still get some tokens that you can eventually turn into claim a coupon progress token to get a free C-Store Tier 6 starship from the game. The way that it works is that every single time that you play a future TFO, assuming that you don't have the 20-hour cooldown like most other projects inside the game, you get 50 tokens. If it's during a bonus progress token weekend, it's 100 instead of 50, but the default is 50. Once you get 3,000 tokens, like 3,000 from the C-Store Starship, you're able to turn all those in and get a 100% discount coupon Tier 6 Starship token that you can use to claim a Starship. If you actually put in the math, and if it was 50 tokens per 20 hours, it would take you about 60 days to get one of these. And so it's not something that you'll get very quickly. It will take you a while. The concept was that if you're someone who's willing to grind inside the game, like a true free-to-play player, you can grind and you'll be able to get something for free from the C-Store eventually. A lot of your super insane grinders in the game would have already kind of do this to some extent with the Dilithium to Zen exchange prices. But yeah, there's a couple more math stuff there for you. Most feature events are 21 days, so it's going to take you 3 events probably, unless you literally have no life, which would be very unfortunate if you have no life. Alright, so the big warning behind this is most starships from the C-Store are a part of some sort of starship pack. There are a few exceptions, but most of them are part of some sort of starship pack, especially the Tier 6 ones. Which means if you claim a starship from one of those packs, it breaks the pack and you can't claim the pack, which means you'll have to claim the ships individually from the rest of that pack, which is very unfortunate. So it becomes very tricky, and that's why I'm making this video at all, is because it becomes really tricky as to what ships you should even be considering. For those of you that have watched my best C-Store packs in the game, or best value packs from the C-Store video before, this video is not going to have any of those ships because you would be breaking packs, and it would cost you a lot more if you were going to get the rest of them from those packs after using one of these tokens in them. So what I'm going to talk about first is an example that's good and an example that's bad for using a token. So this is an example that's good, and it's from the Tier 6 Battlecruiser bundle. So if, say, you wanted to use one from these, it wouldn't be a bad idea. The reason is because, yes, there's 3 ships. If you break the pack, you can no longer claim the pack and get both of the rest of them easily. You'd have to pay for each one. The thing is, though, every single one of these ships has the exact same trait and the exact same console. And the pack has only 6,000 Zen. So if you're getting a ship for free anyway, you could be willing to break the pack and buy the Arbiter or the Qugh, and then if you wanted the trading console for the other faction, you could just pay 3,000 Zen instead of 6,000 Zen, so a 50% discount, and get the other ship. And now you have the Starship trait and the console available to every captain on your account, and you save money doing so. Yes, for your Romulan captains, they would lose out on one ship for their Admiralty system, but that's really it. For that one little cost, you get a 50% discount on this pack, which is nice. It's a really good deal. And you don't have to wait for any sales. It's just that's the way it is. A bad example would be like buying a ship from the Cardassian bundle. And yes, there's 3 ships in it, but each one of them has different starship traits and different consoles. So if you're actually wanting to get maximum stuff with all the ships with their traits and consoles, you're going to be missing out significantly. Plus, these ships also don't have any fleet variants, so it's not like you can just like get a ship for a trait and then use and then just earn the fleet version eventually. These are some of the few ships in the game that don't have fleet variants. That's why that one video exists, is because all those ships in that video don't have fleet variants, which is why it's really nice to have them from the C-Store. So yeah, this is a very bad example, and it's why these types of bundles will not be included in this video. So in this video, there's going to be a couple things I'm going to be saying. First off, I mean, if Starship is not part of a Starship pack, then it's completely safe, but there are very few Tier 6 Starships that are like that. Now, if a Starship, like for the Arbiter for instance, is in a 2 or 3 ship pack, we're claiming one of it would be overall lower cost to the overall pack than if it's the train console for everything, then it's probably going to be included and be, or at least willing to be included in this video. Or third, this is a weird exception here, if a starship is from an expansion pack, like Legacy of Romulus, Delta Rising, Special Agent, Jem'Hadar Vanguard, something like that, it's still okay. The reason is because the reasoning for Cryptic is because there's some items in those packs that you can't get outside of those packs. They don't stop you from getting those packs after you've bought some or all the starships from those packs in different means. So if you want to claim a Starship 2 from an expansion pack, sure, it would lower your incentives to buy that pack, but you still could afterwards. Anyway, for the TLDR for this, before I get into the real meat and stuff in this video, is I'm going to pick starships for my top 10 that I consider kind of good, and that ideally don't break packs that require all their ships for their maximum value. Obviously, I'm also a tank captain. If you looked on this channel, that's my preference. A lot of these are going to have a trait and/or console that's going to be defensive in nature as a result. Just the way it is. Can't really get around that. So anyway, let's go ahead and get started with our top 10. So as for number 10, we're going to have the flight deck assault cruisers, choosing either the Federation or the KDF version. I'm putting the KDF one here for whenever we get to later in this video as to why. But the trait is decent. It gives you extra damage whenever you're outnumbered, and it gives you extra survival and resistances whenever you're outnumbering your enemies, like in a lot of your TFOs out there, for instance. The console is pretty nice as well, but it's stuck to the flight deck assault cruiser, so these ones and their fleet variants. But it gives you nice stats and a very, very nice click. Probably one of the most powerful damage resistance rating debuffs in the entire game, to be honest. Which means if you really need to take down a really powerful tank inside the game, like maybe the final boss of Battlecruiser Elite, this is a pretty nice console to use for it. Now, the trait is, like, nowadays is a little bit lackluster. It was decent whenever it came out. It wasn't super noteworthy, but it was decent. Nowadays, there's a few traits that are a bit better for damage and or for survival, so the trait's a bit lackluster, but it's still okay, and that's why it nudged into the number 10 slot in this list. For our number 9 in this list, is going to be the Recon Destroyer and its Klingon variant. It's really here not really because of Jubilant Cadence, but for its universal console. Being able to get shield hardness is extremely rare inside the game. Like, the reason why I bought and have for my science tanks a certain Tetryon console with its torpedo is for the shield resistance off of its 2-piece, which, because shield hardness is so rare, that was worth it to me. For those of you that can't afford something like that and want additional shield hardness on your ship, Trinary Rays is a decent option as well for extra shield resistance on your ship. And shield hardness is a linear form of shield resistance. In my damage resistance video, the more recent one, not my very first couple ones, but my more recent one, from my PowerPoint perspective, I talk about that more. And shield hardness is very, very nice. So if you want shield hardness, very, very nice there. Jubilant Cadence is okay, but there's better ones for cooldowns if you really want cooldowns from the C-Store. Number 8 in this list is the Scryer Intel Science Vessel. I was trying my best to include a science vessel in this list. It was really hard. Most Starship trays for science are from the really big Starship packs in some form. There's CounterYolo, which is from a pilot escort bundle. There's a science build as well from the 31st Century Temporal Ship bundle that'd be really, really hard to use the claims with. The Scryer Intel Science Vessel is from the Delta Rising pack, though, so not as bad to claim that one. So the Starship Tray is Emitter Synergy. It basically is a slightly worse version of Improved Photonic Officer from the raw stats point. Even, like, of course you have to compare it discounting the Photonic Officer buff on Improved Photonic Officer, but this gives damage and shield and healing similar to the range that you're getting on Improved Photonic Officer off of the exchange right now. Obviously that one's better because this was super old in the game and that's much later. A lot of the trades were more conservative early in the day in Star Trek Online because it was the first ones. They didn't know how powerful they wanted their trades to actually be. So the early ones are a lot weaker, just the way it is inside the game. The console's there. The console's not that great, but it's there as well for you to view. I only have this in the list really because if I didn't have anything specifically for science in this list, I'd probably get chewed out in the comments below. So here's one in the list as well. Our number 7 is the Klingon version of the Arbiter Battlecruiser from the C-Store. And this is here mainly for the Starship trait, even though I am also saying that the Klingon C-Store ship is actually a decent one as well, just because if you're starting off as a Klingon captain, until you get to level 20, I believe it's level 20 anyway, you don't have access to a battlecruiser or cruiser at all. You're stuck in a raider, and unless that's the playstyle that you want, it can definitely be a struggle because raiders and raptors are really, really squishy. It's really easy for them to die. So having something like this can make yourself easier and more buff whenever if you're in a level KDF captain. Plus, Entwined Tactical Matrices allows you to more easily do a torpedo, have a couple of torpedoes on your ship alongside the energy weapons on your ship that most builds are typically going to want inside the game. Especially if you wanted my budget beam tank videos, buying this ship is actually going to be able to allow you to do that pretty well. And if you wanted to tank on a battlecruiser, this is not a necessarily bad option either. Of course, you want to get the fleet version eventually, but having a 5-3 ship with its bridge off your layout is actually a really good starship. For DPS, it's also a really good starship too, for its durability. Really low turn rate, but a pretty good durability. The console is not really something to really super notice. It's got some engineering readiness, that's cool, but its clicky is not really noteworthy. Number 6 is going to be one that I know some of you are going to disagree with, and that's okay. I really like Warp Shadow Decoy. Maybe it's because I really like battle cloaks inside the game, and so I really like stuff that gives you extra utility around your battle cloak. So one of the biggest weaknesses that was supposed to be around for cloaks, by the way, is that as you're going into and out of the cloak, well, your shields are down, so obviously it's harder for enemies to, well, harder to survive going in and out of the cloak. You can work around this, like if you have the Voth battle cloak, for instance, you have significant resistance going in and out of the cloak, so that's not an issue. Another option, especially if you're a tank captain and you need a cloak because you're close to dying, is to have Warp Shadow Decoy on your ship. So that as you're going into the cloak, you have a Warp Shadow that appears and taunts the enemies around you. So the Warp Shadow is taking the hits while you're going into the cloak and needing to get a little respite instead of you. The closest comparison that we have inside the game is on the ground with a device called the Shard of Possibilities. I really hope that Cryptic adds this event back in so that we can replay a mission or they sort of give away so you can get Shard Possibilities again. It's been a long time since we've had access to Shard of Possibilities. To my understanding, none of the Jem'Hadar captains inside the game have access to this device because it's been a long time since they've done a giveaway of some sort or a mission replay event to be able to earn this again. Same thing with the Breen Tactical Officer and the Reman Science Officer as well from the Romulan arc that every captain can play. Now for the console itself, it's a super strong pull console. That's really what's noteworthy about this thing. For those of you that want to know, CounterYolo is considered a pretty strong pull and it only has a negative 0.23. And if you look at Singularity Collapse, it has a negative 50. It's not just like in the fulls, it's a very, very, very strong pull. Okay? It's significant. Now, of course, this is stuck on the Arbiter Battlecruiser, but if you really want that and want to use the fleet version of the ship, it's definitely an option for you. Going into our top 5, I was debating putting this on the list just because even though the trait is the same among these 3 ships, the consoles are slightly different and or have different sets that they're a part of, and it's different for each one of the factions. Looking at it though, and looking at a lot of the forums, in my opinion, the Starship trait, because it's the same, was enough to put it on this list. So being able to increase the duration of cannon scatter volley by 4 seconds is significant. There's 2 other traits that increase durations of things that are energy ones. There's one that increases the duration of cannon rapid fire. There's also one that increases the duration of beam fire will. The beam fire will one is from a bigger starship pack from the Miracle Worker bundles, and cannon rapid fire is from a really expensive billion credit promotion pack starship. The Jem'Hadar strike ship and Jem'Hadar attack ship are the 2 ones that is the ones that comes from. But for cannon builds, especially if you're not going to go for the super insanely expensive ones off of the exchange, this is a decent alternative. Cannon scatter volley is not as powerful as cannon rapid fire, but it's still pretty good. It's still 2, and that alone is why this is on the list. The consoles in and of themselves aren't great without the sets behind them, but the source trait is pretty strong, and so it's there. And the usability of the consoles varies significantly from faction to faction, so that's why we're only really talking about Starship trait for this particular slide. For our number 4, as we already talked about a little bit in this video prior, is the Arbiter Battlecruiser. This one and the Qugh for the KDF. This is arguably one of the best DPS traits inside the game. And it's because it gives you power cost reduction and it gives you firing cycle haste. I think it's like 10 or 20% extra firing cycle haste. I haven't looked at the stats in a while, but It is a pretty nice, well-rounded trait. Really, the big reason why DPS people still use this trait is for the firing cycle haste. If Cryptic ever decided to nerf the firing cycle haste off of this weapon, DPS captains would immediately jump ship and use a different Starship trait. Guaranteed. But until then, really ever since this was released, this has been a staple in most DPS builds. At least the energy specific ones. Beam ones, cannon ones, all of them. All those energy ones have to use the emergency weapon cycle. The console is also decent as well for its survival. It gives you some cool secondary shielding that also gives you a good amount of healing to hold in shields after this is all depleted. That can be used on any starship. I believe they've recently added stats to this console as well. It's been a little while since I've looked at it inside the game because I use a lot of different other consoles nowadays. But it's a decent survival console nonetheless. Outside of a very strong starship trait, plus it's a pack that that it's not bad to break. You're able to get the Federation or the Clan one for free and just pay 3,000 for the other faction equivalent, and so it is cheaper to get it. Pretty solid. That's why it's number 4 on this list. Number 3 is a ship that's extremely similar to that one, which is the Jem'Hadar Vanguard Warship. The reason why this one gets the slight edge, in my opinion, first off, when I was looking at all the Jem'Hadar Vanguard ships inside the game, by the way, and I was testing them out for tanking, I actually, and this is going to be really sad for me saying this, I like the feel of the Vanguard Warship over the Vanguard Cruiser. And saying that, it's painful because the Cruiser has cruiser commands and the Vanguard Warship has none of that. But with all the stuff available to the Vanguard Warship, plus this Bridge Officer layout, which is very good, I had to give the edge to this ship. And not to mention that, but what puts this ship over the edge for the Arbiter, in my opinion, for choosing, is this ship doesn't have a fleet variant. Therefore, you get an insane amount of value off of this ship. Not to mention, it's debatably one of, if not the best, DPS ship from the exchange, or sorry, from the C-Store. Can't say that. If it was from the exchange, we would talk about the Valwar Juggernaut. But from the C-Store, this is one of the best DPS ships in the game. It still has a solid trait alongside it. It's basically a emergency weapon cycle, except instead of getting firing cycle haste, it's a player-based AoE weapon power cost reduction to the rest of your team as well. That happens to be within 7.5 kilometers. Additionally, the console, even though the clicky is terrible, the raw stats are actually pretty good. You get some additional crit severity and drain extra expertise, which immediately made me think of the Tactical Kinetic Converter, which has crit severity and control expertise instead, so it's drain instead of control. But pretty similar otherwise. And yeah, it's a very solid ship. So that's why it's number 3 on my list. And yeah, if you don't have the big Vanguard expansion pack, I'd highly consider looking at this ship carefully. Number 2 on my list was a really close number 2. And it's the Europa Heavy Battlecruiser. It's not part of any Starship bundle out there. It's just by itself. Which obviously, in a list like this one, already puts its value really highly because it's, if you claim this ship, it's a free ship and it's not going to be punishing you for any other bundles out there. The Starship trait is decent. I wish this was a clickable Starship trait that was just a clickable heal that also give you some bonus to healing for a little while. I wish that was the way it was, but unfortunately it's not. So it's much better for budget support and tank builds, honestly, out there. The big value of this ship is the console. If this console was available to Klingon captains as well, it would be number one in this list for sure. Hopefully Cryptic at some point in the near future adjusts Starships so that the opposite faction is able to access consoles that you've purchased from the C store through like various Starships. Like when I see this console, by the way, this is a very solid console, by the way. A lot of people are sleeping on this console and then taking Community. It's not to be underrated. It is very good. I see this as a combination of the dynamic power redistributor module and the power matter field projector. If you combine both those together, you basically get what Overload SIF linkage is. And this is really expensive for Federation captains. This one was from the Lucari, I can't remember which Lucari ship it was, but it was one that like was released like 2 or 3 years ago to be earnable. But yeah, especially if you're in your place of the game, looking to be a tank, and don't have Permanent Field Projector, this is a decent alternative, assuming that you're a Federation or a Federation Aligned Romulan. If you're a KDF captain, you're out of luck until Cryptic decides to change some of their programming and allow you to get the overloaded SIF linkage console in some fashion. Until then, this is still only going to be number 2 in my list just for that reason alone. Number 1, though, and I hinted at this before in this video, but it is the... Oh, I actually forgot about this thing. My bad. My one rant in here was that I wanted to talk about shield resistance traits. Can't believe I forgot about this. So for a long time on my channel, I've talked about how strong shield overload is, and I don't deny it's a very strong trait. Plus, if you want the fleet version of this ship, the console is also really similar to the DP Arm console, by the way, or the console from the previous slide. Although SIF linkage is pretty similar to that one too. However, I know a lot of you don't like emergency power to shields. You like emergency power to engines, especially with a particular officer from Phoenix Lockbox that significantly reduces the cooldowns of emergency power to engines and evasive maneuvers if you use the negative engines. And so here's 2 other traits here that are not as strong, but they are serviceable in place of shield overload. The first one is from the Advanced Light Cruisers. Both of these ones you can get the KDF or Federation version with the coupon code, and then you can get the other one with enemy just fine. For the Sagittarius Temple Cruiser, because it's just the Federation version, you buy the ship, and the trait is available to all captains on your account. The console isn't, but the console is limited to the Sagittarius anyway, so there's not really a lot of loss there. But the trait is immediately claimable for Romulan and Klingon captains. For Federation captains, you have to earn the Starship trait, but it's still accessible to you. So there's not a lot of loss here, and this is from the Temporal Special Agent bundle. So you're still able to access that bundle even after you've claimed this ship. These ones are from their own 3 Starship packs, so getting 1 Starship and buying the other one if you really want this trait for both factions. If not, don't worry too much about it. Evasion Specialist gives you shield hardness by using emergency power to engines or any pilot ability. And then Hidden Run gives you damage resistance rating by using evasive maneuvers. And then a buff to bonus damage and crit severity after evasive maneuvers is up. Both of them are pretty good in their own ways. If this sounds appealing to you, and you wanted something like Shield Overload but you couldn't afford emergency power to shields in your build, these are some good alternatives. Okay, assuming that my memory is not bad about my PowerPoint, cool. So number 1 is the Vor'ral Support Battlecruiser. The moment that I saw this pack release, my immediate thought was, this is awesome. We now have a cheap Starship trait for Klingon captains that can't afford Honored Dead from the exchange. So for a lot of the players out there that really don't like this trait, by the way, a lot of them by the way, they aren't tank captains. If they're tank captains, they would say this is the best trait in the entire game. That's not why this is number 1. It's because for a lot of Federation captains, if they're struggling with survival, the first thing that a lot of people recommend them to do is to go to the exchange and buy a trait called Honored Dead, which gives a significant amount of damage resistance and hull upon taking damage. For DPS captains, that trait is typically enough to get by. The problem is, though, KDF captains can't get Honored Dead really cheaply off of the exchange. They have to buy the Sarcophagus Carrier off the exchange, which on average is at least 100 million energy credits more expensive than the Crossfield Spearhead. And the Crossfield Spearhead typically is at least 420 million energy credits on the exchange, and so having to buy a ship that's 500 million energy credits plus, when Federation captains are buying this trait for typically under 1 million credits, is a pretty drastic difference. Okay, if you actually do like energy credits to like Zen or to lithium to Zen and those types of conversions in there, you actually find out that buying the Vor'ral just for the Starship trait for its rough, a little bit weaker but rough equivalency to Honored Dead is cheaper than getting these sarcophagus off of the exchange for 1 captain on your account. It's so drastic that if you want survival for a KDF captain, this is the pick you should be choosing. Outside of that, and beyond the implications of how strong this trait is for tanking, the other good thing about this is you get a console called the Temporal Trajectory Shifter, which is really, really similar to an oldie console that is on virtually every single DPS build I've ever seen in the past like 4 years. It's called the Timeline Stabilizer, and it's a console that was from the Crenum Science Vessel that was an event earnable reward starship in the game, which is, I'm not going to deny it's a really strong console. It gives reduction to science bridge officer abilities, but more importantly, it gives you firing cycle haste and reduction to bridge officer and captain ability recharge times. So for the Temporal Trajectory Shifter, which is from this ship, from the C store, especially for those of you that are newer to the game and don't have this console, it gives you stuff that's similar. It gives you firing cycle haste and ability cooldowns. And it also, just like this ship, it also increases the recharge times of stuff on the enemy ship as well. It's not as powerful, but it does roughly the same job as what the Timeline Stabilizer would be able to do. And hey, if you're a Federation captain, or if you're someone in the game who wants to play with both factions, and you don't have this with the Timeline Stabilizer unlocked for your account, getting one of these ships with the 100% discount token, and then purchasing the other one for 3,000 Zen, is probably going to be worthwhile to you. So that is my recommendation in this video. Hopefully those of you that are watching this all the way to the end found it enjoyable. There will be some links to a couple of other interesting videos that I think are pretty enjoyable based upon if you've watched this video. But yeah, thank you all for watching. Hopefully y'all enjoy how Star Trek Online is going. We did lose the Foundry, which kind of sucks, but they are trying to do some unique and cool stuff for free to play in the near future, so that's going to be a benefit as well to the game. Thank you all for watching, and enjoy the rest of your day.